Good morning, everybody. 2 weeks ago, Father was kind enough to give me the weekend off so that I could fly down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana for my 50th high school reunion. Anyway, and it was great, catching up with a lot of people and that I hadn't seen literally in decades. But two encounters stood out more than the others. One was really funny, and the other one was really profound. And the funny one was, after I'd been there a couple hours, I went over to a guy I knew and said, "Hey, good to see you." I said, "How's it going tonight?" And he goes, "Not good." And I said, "Really, what's wrong?" He goes, "Well, all the girls that wouldn't talk to me in high school, they won't talk to me tonight either." The profound one was with another classmate that I had who was a super smart woman, honor roll in high school, went to college, went to law school, and was practicing law in New Orleans for a number of years. But just life didn't seem quite right to her, and she prayed and discerned and finally realized that the Lord was calling her to become a religious sister. So she left the law practice, went to a convent, and joined a religious order of sisters. And as you might expect, the sister and the deacon were really interested in talking with each other about our journeys and our faith. And so we spent a lot of time talking, and I asked her, I said, "Well, why do you think it is that fewer and fewer people seem to embrace religion and faith these days?" And she said, "Well, I don't know, but I think one reason it might be more acceptable and more understandable to people if we simplified everything, right? If we simplified everything for people first." And she goes, "Because if you think about it, at its core, our religion is this. We have a perfect Father who loves us and wants to take care of us. We have a perfect Father who loves us and just wants to take care of us." And I thought about that when reflecting on the readings for this weekend, especially the gospel, because when you look at it, really, Jesus is trying to say that exact thing to us. So maybe let's look at the gospel and try and simplify it again, okay? When Jesus says, "I give praise to you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth," Lord of heaven and earth, well, what he's saying is God is in charge. God's in charge, not us. God's in charge. God's in charge of all creation, and he's especially in charge of human existence. Why? Well, because he loved each and every one of us into existence. And if he loves us so much that he wanted to create us, how could he fail to want to take care of us? Of course he wants to take care of us. Of course he has a plan for our well-being and our flourishing. We have a perfect Father who loves us and wants to take care of us. So how does he take care of us? Well, if we skip down a little bit into the gospel, Jesus tells us, he goes, "All things have been handed over to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son." Well, how might we simplify that? How about like Father, like Son? Like Father, like Son. Our loving, caring Father sent his only begotten Son into the world to take care of us. It is Christ who came to earth to show us how to love, to show us how to pray, to show us how to heal. It's Jesus who teaches us how to forgive and how to bear suffering with meaning and dignity. So if we have a loving Father who sent his only begotten Son to show us and take care of us, what could possibly go wrong, right? Well, pride, mostly. The sin of pride is where we go wrong. Too often, we just kind of merrily roll along through life thinking we're in charge. We know everything. We know what to do. We know exactly what decision to make. We have the power. And that's when we become the wise and the learned. And the true things of God start to become hidden from us because we're putting up a barrier. We think we know everything. And it's really funny because from time to time, God sends us little reminders that we're not in charge, right? Whether it's a serious illness or a loss of a job or something like that, or maybe even a pandemic. How about that, right? We sure realize we're not in charge when that happened. But yet, when the crisis passes, well, we kind of tend to fall right back into that same thinking of, I'm in charge, I got this, I know what to do. It makes me wonder sometimes if there's not a conversation in heaven going on between God and one of the saints, similar to the one I had with my old classmate. You know, maybe God says, hey, you know those people that weren't talking to me before COVID? They're not talking to me after COVID either. So what is the antidote to this pride? Well, it's humility. It's the virtue of humility. You know, the most humble person ever to walk the face of the earth was Jesus Christ. Why? Well, St. Paul writes in his letter to the Philippians, chapter 2, he says, Jesus, who is God the Son, came in human appearance and humbled himself, becoming obedient to the Father, even to the point of death. Yes, death on a cross. And what did that type of humility get Jesus? Paul goes on, because of this, God greatly exalted him. God lifted him up. And Paul tells us in the letter to the Romans that we read today, that if that Spirit of Christ dwells within us, that spirit of humility, that God will raise us up also. And that's why, when we get to the end of the gospel, Jesus tells us to yoke up to him, to connect ourselves to him, so that we can be humble like he is humble. So we can stop making everything so hard on ourselves, to stop trying to figure out everything by ourselves and acknowledge that God is in charge. So friends, at the start of every day, of every decision that we have to make, big and small, of every meeting we attend or class that we go to, stop beforehand and ask God, say, God, you're in charge. How do you want this to go? What do you think should happen? Yoke ourselves up to Jesus. Ask him what he wants for us. Because very simply, we have a perfect Father who loves us and wants to take care of us.